Ryan stood frozen outside the bar at 2 in the morning, his hand trembling on the car door handle. Through the rain-streaked window, he watched her Jessica Walsh, the woman who had fired him 6 months ago without explanation. She was drunk, cornered by 3 men near the alley entrance, her designer coat sliding off one shoulder. He should drive away. He had every reason to. But what happened next would change everything. 6 months earlier, Ryan Carter had walked out of Walsh Marketing with a cardboard box and no answers. 38 years old, suddenly unemployed, with a 7-year-old daughter waiting at home. Lily had looked up from her homework when he came through the door that afternoon, her eyes too wise for her age. "Why did she fire you, Daddy?" He had no answer then. He still didn't. Now he lived in a 2-bedroom apartment on the east side, the kind with thin walls and fluorescent hallway lights that buzzed all night. The rent was $400 cheaper than their old place. It had to be. He drove for rideshare services now. Nights mostly, when Lily was asleep and Mrs. Chen from next door could listen for her through the wall. 10 to 12 hours behind the wheel, breathing in strangers' perfume and cigarette smoke, watching the city that used to be his blur past in streaks of neon. Every night before he left, Lily made him a lunchbox. Peanut butter sandwiches cut into stars, apple slices, a juice box, and always, a note stuck to the lid with tape. Tonight's note read, "I love you, Daddy. You're the best driver in the world." He kept every single one in a shoebox under his bed. 43 notes, 43 nights. Ryan had been good at his job. Marketing campaigns for mid-sized companies, the kind of work that required creativity and precision. He had won 2 regional awards. His team respected him. He came in early, stayed late, never missed a deadline. Then one Thursday morning, Jessica Walsh called him into her office and said, "We're letting you go, effective immediately." No explanation, no warning. Just a severance check for 2 weeks and a security guard walking him out. He had tried to ask why, but she wouldn't meet his eyes. Now, 6 months later, he was parked outside a bar at 2 in the morning, watching that same woman stumble into trouble. His phone buzzed on the passenger seat. A text from an unknown number. "Help me. Please." Below it, a location pin, right where he was sitting. His hands tightened on the steering wheel. Through the windshield, he could see Jessica trying to pull away from the men. One of them grabbed her arm. Ryan closed his eyes. He thought of Lily. He thought of the principle he'd been trying to teach her since her mother left. We help people, not because they deserve it, but because we do. The phone buzzed again, the same message, the same plea. He opened the car door. The rain had picked up. Ryan stood on the sidewalk, 20 feet from the alley entrance, watching the scene unfold like it was happening behind glass. One of the men had Jessica's wrist. Another was laughing, saying something Ryan couldn't hear over the rain. She tried to pull away, her heels scraping against the wet pavement. Ryan's mind flashed back to that Thursday morning, the way she had looked past him, not at him, the cold efficiency in her voice. "We're letting you go. No apology, no humanity." He had walked out carrying that box of his things, a coffee mug Lily had painted in kindergarten, a plaque from the regional marketing awards, a framed photo of him and his daughter at the beach. Everything that mattered, reduced to something he could carry in 2 hands. That night, Lily had asked if they could still go to the aquarium on Saturday like they'd planned. He had said yes, but he'd paid for it with his last credit card, the one he'd been saving for emergencies. The memories hit him in waves. The overdue notices. The nights he'd sat at the kitchen table with a calculator, trying to make the numbers work. The morning Lily had asked why they didn't have the good cereal anymore. She didn't deserve his help. She had taken everything from him. But then Lily's voice cut through the anger, clear as if she were standing right beside him. "We help people not because they deserve it, but because we do." He had said those words to her a month ago, when she'd come home crying because a girl at school had been mean to her. Lily had asked why she should share her crayons with someone who called her names. Ryan had knelt down, held her small hands in his, and said, "Because that's who we are. We help people not because they deserve it, but because we do." She had believed him. She had shared her crayons the next day. Now he stood in the rain, and his daughter's faith in him felt like a weight he couldn't put down. Ryan took a breath, then another. He walked toward the alley. The men turned when they heard his footsteps. One of them, the tallest, stepped forward with his chest out. Ryan's voice came out steady, calm. "She's with me. Let her go." The tall one laughed. Jessica's eyes found Ryan's face, and something flickered there, recognition, maybe, or shock. Ryan didn't wait for permission. He moved forward, put himself between Jessica and the men, and said it again, quieter this time but with more weight. "She's with me." The men looked at each other. One of them muttered something about not being worth it. They backed off, disappearing into the rain and the dark. Jessica swayed on her feet. Ryan caught her elbow before she fell. She looked up at him, her mascara running in black streaks, and whispered, "Ryan?" He didn't answer. He just guided her toward his car, opened the passenger door, and helped her inside. In the rearview mirror, he watched a single tear slide down her face. The rain had picked up. Ryan stood on the sidewalk, 20 feet from the alley entrance, watching the scene unfold like it was happening behind glass. One of the men had Jessica's wrist. Another was laughing, saying something Ryan couldn't hear over the rain. She tried to pull away, her heels scraping against the wet pavement. Ryan's mind flashed back to that Thursday morning. The way she had looked past him, not at him. The cold efficiency in her voice. "We're letting you go. No apology. No humanity." He had walked out carrying that box of his things, a coffee mug Lily had painted in kindergarten, a plaque from the regional marketing awards, a framed photo of him and his daughter at the beach. Everything that mattered, reduced to something he could carry in 2 hands. That night, Lily had asked if they could still go to the aquarium on Saturday like they'd planned. He had said yes, but he'd paid for it with his last credit card, the one he'd been saving for emergencies. The memories hit him in waves, the overdue notices, the nights he'd sat at the kitchen table with a calculator, trying to make the numbers work. The morning Lily had asked why they didn't have the good cereal anymore. She didn't deserve his help. She had taken everything from him. But then Lily's voice cut through the anger, clear as if she were standing right beside him. "We help people, not because they deserve it, but because we do." He had said those words to her a month ago, when she'd come home crying because a girl at school had been mean to her. Lily had asked why she should share her crayons with someone who called her names. Ryan had knelt down, held her small hands in his, and said, "Because that's who we are. We help people, not because they deserve it, but because we do." She had believed him. She had shared her crayons the next day. Now he stood in the rain, and his daughter's faith in him felt like a weight he couldn't put down. Ryan took a breath. Then another. He walked toward the alley. The men turned when they heard his footsteps. One of them, the tallest, stepped forward with his chest out. Ryan's voice came out steady, calm. "She's with me. Let her go." The tall one laughed. Jessica's eyes found Ryan's face, and something flickered there, recognition, maybe, or shock. Ryan didn't wait for permission. He moved forward, put himself between Jessica and the men, and said it again, quieter this time but with more weight. "She's with me." The men looked at each other. One of them muttered something about not being worth it. They backed off, disappearing into the rain and the dark. Jessica swayed on her feet. Ryan caught her elbow before she fell. She looked up at him, her mascara running in black streaks, and whispered, "Ryan?" He didn't answer. He just guided her toward his car, opened the passenger door, and helped her inside. In the rearview mirror, he watched a single tear slide down her face. The inside of the car smelled like old coffee and the faint chemical scent of air freshener. Rain drummed against the roof in a steady rhythm. The streetlights outside cast yellow stripes across Jessica's face as Ryan pulled away from the curb. She sat slumped against the passenger window, her designer coat wrinkled and damp, her hair falling loose from what had probably been an elegant updo hours ago. The smell of alcohol filled the small space between them. Ryan kept his eyes on the road. His hands gripped the steering wheel at 10 and 2, the way he always drove when Lily was in the car. Steady, controlled. Jessica's breathing was uneven. She pressed her forehead against the cold glass. He had imagined seeing her again. Of course he had. In those first few weeks after being fired, he'd rehearsed what he might say if they ever crossed paths. Angry words, demands for answers, questions she'd never answered. But now, sitting 3 feet away from her in the dark, he felt nothing, just a hollow sort of emptiness. She mumbled something he couldn't make out. Ryan glanced at her. Her eyes were closed, but tears were sliding down her cheeks, cutting through the smudged makeup. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Her voice was thick, barely audible over the rain. "I'm so sorry for everything." He didn't respond. He turned up the heat instead, a small gesture that cost him nothing. The city passed by outside. Empty streets, closed storefronts, a few other cars with their headlights cutting through the rain. Ryan had driven these routes 1,000 times in the past 6 months. He knew every pothole, every broken streetlight. Jessica's head lolled to one side. She murmured something that sounded like a name, but Ryan couldn't tell whose. 20 minutes later, he pulled into the driveway of a house in Riverside Estates. He'd looked up her address once, months ago, in a moment of weakness. He'd never gone there, but he'd memorized it anyway. The house was massive. 2 stories, brick facade, a front lawn that probably cost more to maintain than his rent. But every window was dark, no porch light, no sign that anyone was waiting for her to come home. Ryan turned off the engine. The silence felt louder than the rain. He looked at Jessica. She was barely conscious, her breathing slow and heavy. He could leave her here, drop her at the curb and drive away. She'd make it inside eventually, or she wouldn't. Either way, it wasn't his problem. But when he reached for the door handle, he thought of Lily again, of the way she looked at him like he was someone worth believing in. Ryan got out of the car. He walked around to the passenger side, opened the door, and caught Jessica before she slumped forward. She was heavier than he expected, dead weight against his shoulder. He half carried, half dragged her up the front steps. The door was unlocked. Inside, the house was as dark and empty as it had looked from outside. Jessica woke to sunlight cutting through the living room windows like a blade. Her head throbbed with each heartbeat. Her mouth tasted like metal and regret. She was still on the couch, the blanket twisted around her legs. The glass of water sat on the coffee table, untouched. Next to it, 2 white pills, and a note. She reached for it with shaking hands. "Everyone deserves to go home safe, even those who hurt us." The handwriting was neat, familiar. She'd seen it on reports and project proposals for 3 years. The memory came back in pieces. The bar, the men, Ryan's face in the rain, his hands steadying her, the drive through dark streets, him covering her with a blanket. She pressed the heels of her palms against her eyes. He had every reason to leave her there, to drive past, to pretend he hadn't seen. But he hadn't. Jessica stood slowly, the room tilting before it steadied. She walked to the kitchen and swallowed the pills with tap water, then leaned against the counter and looked at the note again. "Even those who hurt us." The words burned. She knew what she'd done to him. She remembered the look on his face when she'd called him into her office that Thursday morning. The confusion, the quiet dignity as he'd packed his things without arguing. She'd chosen him because he wouldn't fight back, because he was kind, because firing someone kind was easier than firing someone who'd make a scene. The board had demanded cuts, 20% reduction in staff. She'd fought it for weeks, but they'd overruled her. So she'd made the list, and she'd put Ryan's name on it because she knew he'd leave quietly. She hadn't expected it to haunt her. Jessica walked to the home office down the hall. The room was as sterile as the rest of the house. Desk, laptop, filing cabinets. No warmth. She opened the bottom drawer and pulled out a folder she hadn't touched in months. Inside was a photograph, edges worn from handling. A younger version of herself, smiling, standing next to a man with his arm around her shoulders. A little boy sat on the man's hip, grinning at the camera. Her ex-husband. Her son. She turned the photo over. On the back, in handwriting that wasn't hers, "To my forever." The paper had been torn once, right down the middle, then taped back together. She'd done that herself, in a moment of rage after the divorce papers were signed. Jessica set the photo on the desk and opened her laptop. Her email inbox loaded. 17 unread messages, most of them work. One from her lawyer. Subject line, custody appeal, final decision. She'd been putting off opening it for 3 days. Now, with Ryan's note still clutched in her other hand, she clicked it. The first line was enough. "We regret to inform you that your petition for joint custody has been denied." She read it twice, then a third time. Denied. She hadn't seen her son in 2 years. He was 9 now. She'd missed his 8th birthday, his first day of 3rd grade, 2 Christmases. Her ex-husband had made sure of that. Full custody, supervised visitation only, and even that had fallen apart after 6 months when Jessica had shown up late, hungover, unable to hide it. The judge had called her unfit. Maybe he was right. Jessica closed the laptop and picked up her phone. She scrolled through her contacts until she found Ryan's number. She'd kept it after firing him. She wasn't sure why. Her thumbs hovered over the keyboard. "I need to see you, please." But she had no right to ask, no right to his time or his forgiveness. She deleted the message and set the phone down. Then she looked at the note again. Everyone deserves to go home safe. She hadn't given Ryan that. She'd taken his safety, his security, his livelihood. But he'd given it to her anyway. Ryan stood in the parking lot where rideshare drivers gathered before morning rush hour, drinking gas station coffee that tasted like burnt rubber. 6:30 in the morning. The sky was gray, threatening more rain. Around him, other drivers leaned against their cars, scrolling through their phones, waiting for the surge pricing to kick in. He knew most of them by sight now. The older man with the Honda who always brought a thermos. The woman with the minivan who kept rosary beads hanging from her mirror. None of them knew he used to wear a tie to work. That he'd once pitched campaigns to rooms full of executives. That version of himself felt like someone else's life. A black sedan pulled into the lot. Newer model, clean, out of place among the used Toyotas and beaten Fords. Ryan watched it park 3 spaces down. The engine cut off, but no one got out. He took another sip of coffee and checked his phone. Lily had texted him a photo 10 minutes ago, a drawing she'd made of the two of them holding hands under a rainbow. He smiled and saved it. A car door opened behind him. Ryan turned. Jessica Walsh stood next to the black sedan, holding 2 coffee cups. She wore jeans and a plain sweater, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. No makeup, no designer coat. She looked smaller than she had last night. Uncertain. The other drivers glanced over, curious. Jessica scanned the parking lot until her eyes found his. She started walking toward him, her steps careful, deliberate. Ryan's grip tightened on his phone. Every instinct told him to get in his car and leave. But he stayed. She stopped a few feet away and held out one of the cups. Her hand trembled slightly. "Can we talk?" Her voice was quiet. Raw. "Please." Ryan looked at the coffee, then at her face. Her eyes were red-rimmed, shadowed with exhaustion. He glanced at his watch. 6:37. "I have 15 minutes, he said. His voice came out flat. "I pick up my daughter at 7. Jessica nodded quickly, relief flickering across her features. Ryan didn't take the coffee. He crossed his arms and waited. She set both cups on the hood of his car, then took a breath like she was bracing herself. "I remember everything from last night," she said. The words came out rushed. And I remember what I did to you 6 months ago." Ryan said nothing. Jessica's throat worked. Her eyes dropped to the pavement. "I can't pretend anymore," she continued. "I can't act like it didn't happen. Like I didn't destroy your life because it was easier than doing the right thing." The parking lot felt too quiet. One of the other drivers had stopped scrolling and was watching them now. Ryan's jaw tightened. He could walk away. He should walk away. But something in the way she stood there unguarded, stripped of all the corporate armor he'd seen her wear for years, made him stay. "So don't pretend," he said simply. Jessica looked up, and something broke in her expression. "There's a park," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "2 blocks from here. Can we sit? Just for a few minutes." Ryan checked the time again. 6:40. He reached for one of the coffee cups and took it. 14 minutes, he said. Jessica nodded and turned toward the park. Ryan followed. The park was small, a few benches arranged around a dying fountain, empty at this hour except for a man walking his dog in the distance. Jessica sat on a stone bench near the edge, gripping her coffee cup with both hands. Ryan stayed standing, checking his phone. 6:43. She stared at the fountain for a long moment before speaking. "I chose you because I thought you wouldn't fight back." Her voice was steady now, like she'd rehearsed this. "The board demanded layoffs, 20% across all departments. I fought them for weeks, but they didn't care. So I made the list." Ryan's chest tightened, but he kept his face neutral. Jessica looked down at her hands. "I put your name on it because you were kind. Because I knew you'd walk out quietly. Because firing someone decent was easier than firing someone who'd scream at me or threaten to sue." Her throat worked. "I was right, and I hate myself for it." The words hung between them like smoke. Ryan took a slow breath. "Do you know what it's like?" he said quietly. "To explain to your 7-year-old daughter why you can't afford her favorite cereal anymore, why she can't do gymnastics this year, why we had to move to a smaller apartment." Jessica flinched. Ryan's voice didn't rise, but every word cut. "You didn't just take my job. You took my daughter's security. You took her stability. Do you know how that feels?" Jessica's eyes filled, but she didn't look away. "No," she whispered, "but I'm learning." She reached into her bag and pulled out a cream-colored envelope. Her hands shook as she held it out. "I can't undo what I did, but I can do this." Ryan didn't move. "It's a letter of recommendation," Jessica continued. "To Mitchell and Harding. They're one of our partner firms. Bigger than Walsh Marketing. Better benefits. Better pay." She set the envelope on the bench between them. "The position is senior strategist. 50% more than what you made with me. No strings attached." Ryan stared at the envelope like it might burn him. "You deserve this," Jessica said. Her voice cracked. "You always did." Ryan picked up the envelope slowly. He didn't open it, just held it, feeling the weight of the paper. "Why now?" he asked. The question came out harder than he meant. "Why do you care?" Jessica's face crumpled, but she held herself together. "Because someone showed me that being decent costs nothing," she said, "even to those who hurt us." The note. His words. Ryan really looked at her for the first time since they'd sat down. The exhaustion, the guilt. The woman who'd fired him was gone, and in her place was someone he didn't recognize. Someone broken and trying to rebuild. "I lost custody of my son," she said suddenly, the words tumbling out. 2 years ago. I haven't seen him since his 7th birthday. I showed up drunk to a visitation. The judge called me unfit." Ryan's grip on the envelope loosened. "I became someone I don't recognize," Jessica continued. "Someone my son wouldn't be proud of. Someone I'm not proud of." She met his eyes. "And last night when you could have left me in that alley, you didn't. You could have driven past. Pretended you didn't see. But you didn't." She wiped at her face with the back of her hand. "You reminded me that decent people still exist. That I used to be one of them." Ryan stood there, the envelope in his hand. the morning light growing brighter around them. 6:52. He looked at the letter, then at Jessica. "I'm not doing this for you," he said finally. Jessica nodded, understanding. "I know." Ryan put the envelope in his jacket pocket. "I have to go," he said. "My daughter's waiting." He turned to leave, then stopped. "Jessica." She looked up. "Get help," he said. "Not cruel, just honest. Really get help, for your son." Jessica's breath hitched. "I will," she whispered. Ryan walked away. 3 days later, Ryan stood in front of the mirror in his apartment, adjusting a tie he hadn't worn in 6 months. The fabric felt foreign against his neck. Mitchell and Harding had called him the day after he'd submitted Jessica's letter. The interview was scheduled for 10 in the morning. Senior strategist position. Real benefits. A salary that would let Lily go back to gymnastics. He'd barely slept. Lily sat on his bed, swinging her legs, watching him struggle with the tie. "You look handsome, Daddy." Ryan smiled at her reflection. "Thank you, sweetheart." "Are you nervous?" "A little." She tilted her head, considering this. Then she hopped off the bed and wrapped her arms around his waist from behind. "You're gonna do great," she said into his back. "You're the smartest person I know." Ryan's throat tightened. He turned and knelt down to her level. "I love you," he said. "I love you more." He kissed her forehead, grabbed his keys, and headed for the door. His phone rang as he reached the parking lot. Unknown number. Ryan answered. "Hello?" A woman's voice, clipped and professional. "Is this Ryan Carter?" "Yes." "This is Riverside Elementary. Your daughter Lily has a fever and needs to be picked up immediately. She's in the nurse's office." Ryan's stomach dropped. "What?" "She was fine 20 minutes ago." The woman's tone softened slightly. "She started feeling ill during circle time. We need a parent or guardian here as soon as possible." Ryan looked at his watch. 9:23. The interview was in 37 minutes. Downtown. 20-minute drive in good traffic. "I'll be there," he said. His mind raced. "Give me 15 minutes." He hung up and stared at his phone. The interview, the job, the chance to rebuild everything. But Lily was sick. Ryan scrolled through his contacts. Mrs. Patterson, the neighbor who usually watched Lily, didn't answer. He tried 2 other numbers. Voicemail. Voicemail. He stood in the middle of the parking lot, tie choking him, panic rising in his chest. His thumb hovered over the call log. One name he hadn't deleted. Jessica Walsh. He closed his eyes. This was insane. She wasn't family. She wasn't even a friend. She was the person who'd ruined his life. But his finger pressed the number before he could stop himself. It rang twice. "Ryan?" Jessica's voice was surprised, cautious. "I need help." The words came out strained. "Lily's sick at school. I have the interview in 37 minutes and I can't, there's no one else." Silence on the other end. Ryan's heart hammered. "Send me the address," Jessica said. "No hesitation. I'll be there in 10 minutes." "Jessica." "Send it. Now." Ryan texted her the school address, then called Mitchell and Harding to explain he'd be 15 minutes late. They said they'd wait. He drove to the school, going 20 over the speed limit, his hands white-knuckled on the wheel. When he pulled into the parking lot, Jessica's black sedan was already there. Ryan ran inside. The nurse's office was down the main hallway, second door on the left. He pushed through it and stopped. Lily sat on the examination table, pale and glassy-eyed. Jessica sat in the chair beside her, holding Lily's hand, humming something soft and familiar. Lily's eyes found him. "Daddy." Ryan crossed the room in 3 steps and pulled her into his arms. "I'm here, baby. I'm here." The school nurse, an older woman with kind eyes, stepped forward. "She has a fever of 101. Nothing serious, but she needs to go home and rest." Ryan nodded, relief and panic warring in his chest. Jessica stood. She looked at Ryan, then at Lily. "I can take her to the hospital if you want," she said quietly. "Get her checked out properly. You have your interview." Ryan's first instinct was to refuse, but Lily's head was heavy against his shoulder, her small body radiating heat. He looked at Jessica. Really looked at her. She met his eyes steadily, waiting. Ryan's grip on Lily tightened. "St. Mary's," he said. "The pediatric wing. I'll meet you there in an hour." Jessica nodded. "I'll take care of her." Ryan kissed Lily's forehead and transferred her carefully into Jessica's arms. His daughter didn't protest, just curled against this woman who was almost a stranger. "Daddy has to go to his important meeting," Lily murmured. "I'll be okay." Ryan's eyes burned. He looked at Jessica one more time. "Thank you," he whispered. Jessica's expression softened. "Go," she said. "We'll be fine." Ryan left. Ryan burst through the pediatric wing doors at 11:45, still wearing his interview suit, his tie loosened and askew. He'd gotten the job. They'd shaken his hand, talked about start dates and benefits packages, but none of it mattered until he saw Lily. He found them in room 214. Jessica sat in the chair beside the hospital bed, Lily curled up against her side, sleeping. Jessica's hand rested on Lily's head, her fingers moving slowly through the girl's hair. She was humming the same melody Ryan had heard at the school, something soft and old. Ryan stopped in the doorway. Jessica looked up. She smiled, tired but genuine. "She's okay," she whispered. "Just a virus." They gave her something for the fever. She should sleep for a while. Ryan crossed the room and sat on the edge of the bed. He touched Lily's forehead. Cooler now. Relief hit him like a wave. "Thank you," he said, his voice rough. Jessica shook her head. "You don't have to thank me." They sat in silence for a moment. The only sound Lily's steady breathing and the quiet beep of monitors down the hall. Lily stirred, her eyes fluttering open. She looked at Ryan and smiled. "Did you get the job, Daddy?" Ryan's chest tightened. Even sick, even half asleep, she was thinking of him. "Yeah, sweetheart, I got it." Lily's smile widened. Then she looked at Jessica. "Miss Jessica stayed with me the whole time. She sang me the song my mommy used to sing." Ryan's breath caught. He looked at Jessica, who had gone very still. "You remember that song?" Ryan asked Lily gently. Lily nodded. "Mommy sang it when I was scared." Ryan's ex-wife had left when Lily was 4. She'd said she wasn't ready to be a mother, that she needed to find herself. Ryan hadn't heard from her in 3 years. Lily didn't talk about her much anymore. Jessica's eyes were wet. She looked down at her hands. "My son loved that song too," she said quietly. "I used to sing it to him every night before bed." Lily sat up a little, interested despite her exhaustion. "Do you have a kid?" she asked. Jessica's throat worked. "I do. A son, but he lives far away now." Lily tilted her head, studying Jessica with the brutal honesty only children possess. "Does he know you're a hero? You saved me." Jessica's face crumpled. A tear slid down her cheek before she could stop it. Ryan put his hand on Jessica's shoulder. She looked at him, surprised. "It's not too late," he said. The words felt important. "True. Call him." Jessica shook her head. "He won't answer. He hasn't answered in 2 years." Lily reached out and took Jessica's hand. "Everyone needs a second chance," she said, her small voice serious. "Right, Daddy." Ryan's heart stopped. Those were his words. The ones he'd taught her. He looked at Jessica, who was openly crying now, and then at his daughter, who held this broken woman's hand like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Right," Ryan said softly. Jessica covered her mouth with her free hand, trying to hold back the sobs. "I don't know if I can," she whispered. Lily squeezed her hand tighter. "You can," the girl said. "My daddy says brave isn't not being scared. Brave is being scared and doing it anyway." Jessica looked at Ryan. He nodded. She pulled out her phone with shaking hands and stared at the screen for a long moment. Then she opened her contacts and scrolled to a name she hadn't touched in months. Ethan Walsh. Her thumb hovered over the call button. Ryan stood and picked Lily up gently. "We'll give you some privacy." Jessica looked up at him, terrified. "Stay," she said. Her voice broke. "Please, I can't do this alone." Ryan sat back down, Lily in his lap. Jessica took a breath and pressed call. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. Then a young voice answered, cautious and distant. "Mom?" Jessica's entire body went rigid. Fresh tears streamed down her face. "Ethan," she breathed. "Hi, baby. It's me." Silence on the other end. "I know I don't have the right to call," Jessica continued, her voice shaking. "I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. But I'm trying to be better. I'm trying to be the mom you deserved." More silence. Then quietly, "Why now?" Jessica looked at Ryan and Lily. "Because someone reminded me that it's never too late to do the right thing, that everyone deserves a second chance, even people like me." The line stayed quiet for so long Ryan thought the call had dropped. Then Ethan's voice came back, small and uncertain. "Are you really getting help this time?" Jessica's breath hitched. "Yes, I promise. I'm seeing a therapist. I'm going to meetings. I'm done drinking. I swear to you, Ethan, I'm done." Another long silence. "Can I see you?" Jessica whispered. "Please, just once. I'll come to you, wherever you are." Ryan heard the boy sigh through the phone. "Okay," Ethan said finally. "But Dad has to be there." "Of course. Whatever you need." Saturday, 2 o'clock, the park near Dad's house. Jessica clutched the phone like a lifeline. "I'll be there. Thank you. Thank you, Ethan." The line went dead. Jessica sat frozen, staring at her phone, tears still falling. Then she looked at Ryan and Lily and let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. "He said yes," she whispered. "He said yes." Lily clapped her hands weakly. "See? Second chances." Jessica reached over and pulled Lily into a hug, careful of the IV in her arm. "Thank you," she whispered into the girl's hair. "Thank you." 3 months later, Ryan stood in his new office on the 7th floor of Mitchell and Harding, looking out over the city. The view was different from this height, cleaner, fuller of possibility. His desk held the same coffee mug Lily had painted years ago, the one he'd carried out in that cardboard box. But now it sat next to a nameplate that read, "Ryan Carter, Senior Strategist," and a framed photo of Lily in her new gymnastics leotard, mid-cartwheel, grinning at the camera. He didn't drive nights anymore. He picked Lily up from school every day at 3:15. They did homework together at the kitchen table. He cooked real dinners instead of reheating frozen meals. The apartment was still small, but he'd been looking at bigger places. Nothing extravagant, just somewhere with a yard where Lily could play. His phone buzzed. A text from Jessica. "Ethan's coming for dinner next week. Would you and Lily like to join us?" It wasn't the first invitation. Over the past 3 months, Jessica had become part of their lives in small, unexpected ways. She'd shown up at Lily's gymnastics recital with flowers. She'd helped Ryan move furniture when he'd rearranged the living room. She'd sent Lily a birthday card with a gift certificate to the bookstore, signed, "Your friend, Jessica." Nothing forced, nothing transactional, just quiet presence. Ryan typed back, "We'd love to. What should we bring?" At Walsh Marketing, people noticed the change in Jessica too. She arrived at the office earlier now, but left on time. She asked her staff about their families, remembered birthdays, approved vacation requests without making people feel guilty for taking them. During a staff meeting 2 weeks ago, she'd apologized publicly for the layoffs from 6 months before. She hadn't named Ryan specifically, but everyone knew who she meant. "I made decisions that hurt people," she'd said, her voice steady but raw. "I chose the easy way instead of the right way. I can't undo that, but I can promise you that I won't make that mistake again." The room had been silent. Then one person had started clapping. Then another. Then everyone. Jessica had cried in her office afterward, but they were different tears than the ones she'd shed in the hospital room. On Saturday mornings, Ryan had started meeting her for coffee at the park where they'd first talked. They didn't discuss work. They talked about their kids, about recovery, about the strange, unexpected ways life could rebuild itself. Last Saturday, Jessica had shown him photos on her phone. Her and Ethan at a baseball game. The two of them getting ice cream. A selfie where they were both laughing, Ethan's arm around her shoulders. "He's giving me a chance," she'd said, her voice full of wonder. "A real chance." Ryan had smiled. "You're giving yourself a chance. That's the hard part." Now, standing in his office, Ryan looked at the city and thought about how far they'd both come. From a rainy night outside a bar to this two broken people who'd chosen to be better. His phone buzzed again. Jessica had replied, "Just yourselves. That's all we need." Ryan smiled and sent back a thumbs up. At 3:10, he packed his briefcase and headed out. Time to pick up Lily. In the parking garage, he ran into Tom Henderson, one of the partners. Tom clapped him on the shoulder. "Great work on the Morrison campaign, Ryan." The client loved it. Ryan thanked him and got in his car. As he drove toward Lily's school, he thought about the letter Jessica had given him that morning in the park, the one that had changed everything. He'd never thanked her properly for it. Maybe he would at dinner next week. Or maybe he didn't need to. Maybe showing up was thanks enough. The day Jessica was supposed to meet Ethan for dinner, she called Ryan at noon, her voice tight with panic. "I can't do this. What if he walks in and walks right back out?" Ryan's voice was calm. "Lily and I will come early. We'll help you cook. You won't be alone." At 4:30, they stood on Jessica's porch. She opened the door, her hands twisting together. "I'm a mess," she said. Lily took her hand. "It's okay to be nervous. That means you care." They cooked together. Ryan handled the chicken while Jessica made vegetables and Lily set the table. The house that had been cold and empty now smelled like home. At 6 o'clock, the doorbell rang. Jessica froze. Ryan touched her shoulder. "You've got this." A boy stood on the porch. 9 years old, dark hair, holding his father's hand. "Hi, Mom," Ethan said softly. Jessica knelt down. "Hi, baby. I'm so glad you came." Ethan looked at his father, who nodded. Then the boy stepped forward into her arms. She held him like he might disappear. "I missed you," Jessica whispered. "I missed you too." Dinner was awkward at first. But Lily peppered Ethan with questions, and soon both kids were laughing. After dinner, they walked to the park behind Jessica's house. The evening sky turned orange and gold. Lily and Ethan ran ahead to the playground. Jessica and Ryan walked the path slowly. "Thank you for this," Jessica said. "For helping me not fall apart." Ryan shook his head. "You showed up. That's the hardest part." Jessica stopped walking. She watched Ethan help Lily across the monkey bars. "I never thought I'd get this back," she said, her voice breaking. Ryan followed her gaze. "You're still getting him back. It's going to take time." Jessica turned to him, tears on her cheeks. "Why did you help me? After everything I did to you, why?" Ryan thought about Lily. About the kind of man he wanted her to grow up believing in. "Because someone taught me that we help people not because they deserve it, but because we do." Jessica reached for his hand and held it. "I don't deserve your forgiveness." Ryan looked at her. "Maybe not, but I'm giving it anyway." On the playground, Ethan called out, "Mom, come push me on the swing." Jessica looked at Ryan, her eyes asking permission. He smiled. "Go." She ran toward her son, and Ryan watched them both laugh in the golden light. 6 months later, spring arrived. Ryan stood in Jessica's kitchen, watching Lily and Ethan play catch in the backyard. The house looked different now. Photographs lined the hallway. The refrigerator was covered with drawings and report cards. Jessica stirred pasta at the stove, her face fuller, the shadows under her eyes gone. "Ethan wants to show you his science project. He got an A." Ryan smiled. "I'd love to see it." The back door burst open, and both kids tumbled in, laughing. I'm starving, Ethan announced. You're always starving, Lily teased. Jessica ruffled his hair. Go wash up, both of you. They raced down the hallway, arguing about who'd get to the bathroom first. I never thought I'd hear that sound in this house again, Jessica said. Ryan moved beside her. You earned it back. She looked at him. Something warmer than gratitude passed between them. We both did, she said softly. The doorbell rang. David, Ethan's father, stood holding a bakery box. Brought dessert. They gathered around the table, an imperfect family built from broken pieces. Ethan talked about the science fair. Lily shared a story from school. David asked Jessica if she'd help plan Ethan's birthday. Really? Jessica's voice caught. David nodded. He wants you there. Jessica's eyes filled. Anything you want, baby. After dinner, they played a board game. Laughter filled the room. At one point, Lily climbed onto Jessica's lap. When the game ended, Ethan yawned and leaned against his mother. I'm tired. Jessica kissed his head. You want to sleep in your room here tonight? Yeah. David said goodbye. Ryan stood to leave. You don't have to go yet, Jessica said quietly. Unless you want to. Ryan looked at Lily dozing on the couch, then at Jessica. We can stay a little longer. They sat while the kids slept. Evening light filtered through the windows. I've been thinking, Jessica said, about what you said that night, that everyone deserves to go home safe. Ryan waited. Maybe home isn't always a place. Maybe it's people who choose to show up for each other. Ryan looked around the room, at the photos, the children, the woman who'd become something he never expected. Maybe it is, he said. Jessica met his eyes. You and Lily have become my home. Ryan reached over and took her hand. You've become ours too. Outside, the sun set. Inside, the house was full of light. Sometimes the most beautiful beginnings don't start with perfect circumstances. They start with a choice made in the dark when no one is watching. Ryan didn't save Jessica that rainy night because she deserved it. He did it because he wanted his daughter to grow up in a world where kindness still existed. And Jessica didn't change because someone forced her to. She changed because someone showed her who she used to be. We're all one bad decision away from becoming someone we don't recognize, but we're also one act of grace away from finding our way back. Ryan could have driven past that bar. Jessica had taken his job, his security, his peace of mind. But he stopped anyway. Not because she deserved mercy, but because showing mercy says more about who we are than who they are. Jessica didn't need a lecture that night. She needed one person to treat her like she was still worth saving. That's what changed everything. Not a grand gesture, just a glass of water, a blanket, and a note that said, everyone deserves to go home safe, even those who hurt us. Because at the end of the day, we're all just trying to find our way home. To the people who matter, to the version of ourselves we're proud of. Ryan found his way home to a job that valued him, to a daughter who believed in him, and to a woman who became family. Jessica found her way home to sobriety, to her son, and to the person she'd lost. Sometimes we don't need a miracle. We just need someone willing to open the door, even when they have every reason to keep it closed.